This is the second video on how to use LaserGRBL. We will go over how to load an image, how to center the image on our work area, and how to set up the file so we can engrave something here. Okay? So we assume you have it connected, right? You selected the right COM port and you hit connect. It gave you the message that said Gerbil. Okay? My machine has a homing cycle, so I had to run the homing cycle to get my machine to respond to me. You may not have a homing cycle. You may just be able to move left and right, up and down without that. You might just have to hit unlock to do that. Okay. So, first thing is, we need to open a file. We need to open an image. We're going to start with images first, okay? You can either go File, Open File, or you can hit this check mark. I usually hit the check mark because it's just right here in front of me. So here's a lot of files that I can laser real easy. Okay. Now this video, I'm going to go pretty fast over getting this in there. In the next video, I'll go a little bit deeper into all the settings. Okay. So I'm going to pick an image. Let's find something simple. I like this one. This is Skull Kid here. Okay. So I've got four different types of programs I can make with this image. Okay. I can do line to line tracing, which means that the laser will go side to side to side to side, turning on where there's dark and turning off where there's light, and jumping as fast as it can to the next dark point and turning back on and start engraving it back and forth. That's called line to line tracing, or some people call it rastering. Okay. Next one is 1-bit dithering. 1-bit dithering's a pretty cool setup. So it does great grayscale, but you lose a lot of resolution. And so if you're like a foot or closer to your image, you might see a lot of little dots. If you get any further than that, yeah, it's going to look like perfect grayscale. You can still do grayscale with line-to-line tracing. It's just you have to make sure you know your wood very well. Make sure you know all your settings, your laser head very well. But if you don't, if you just want really good grayscale, really fast, 1-bit dithering is great for that. Okay? If you want to do grayscale on mirrors or on granite, you're going to do 1-bit dithering also because it won't grayscale. You can't line to line grayscale onto granite. The next thing it has is vectorize. So line to line tracing takes the image, right? Finds out where it's dark, turns the laser on, find out where it's light, turns the laser off, right? 1-bit dithering does the same. The darker it is, the more dots there are. The lighter it is, the less dots there are. So it's just turning on and off on these little bitty dots. But then you have vectorize. If I hit vectorize, what it's going to do is try to find the edges of everything. Okay? So vectorize, everywhere where it goes from white or light to dark and then dark to light, it's going to put a line there and it's going to follow that line. So instead of going back and forth, either putting lines like line to line or little dots like dithering does, we're going to find the edge of it and the laser will actually follow the edges here. Okay? And then there's one called center line. Now, I've never used this, but it's cool that they added it. It's going to try to find the center of all these lines. And so it figured out where the dark and light spots were and try to guess where the center pieces are. So if I were to make this image, it would just show up with these red lines. It wouldn't quite be comprehensible at that point. But what we're going to do here is we're going to go line to line tracing. Okay? Now, I'm using a 500 milliwatt UV diode on this machine. Okay? Really high def, does great grayscale. Not very powerful, but that's alright. The image quality is great. Okay? Also, the dot is very small. The actual output diode, very small dot, very easy to get it to a fine focus. I can go up to 12 lines per millimeter, and I can get resolution out of that. Now, if I were using like a 15 watt diode or 7 watt diode, that's a bigger spot. I'm going to want to go anywhere from like 5 to 8 lines per millimeter. Okay? Those of you with like 1 watt to 3 watt blue diodes, you're going to go 8 to 10 lines per millimeter. But with the low power diodes, you can get a lot more lines per millimeter, a lot more resolution. So once I have my line to line set up, I can also edit this image. I can flip it if I want. I can reverse it. Like if I'm doing it on a mirror, I would reverse it. I can crop it. Like if I just wanted certain parts of it, right? I just want that part. This one is a auto trim. So this one finds this auto trim image. It's going to find all the white space and crop that off automatically. I can also invert it. So if I'm doing granite, when you laser granite, it turns lighter where you engrave it, right? I can invert it. And then if I decide I didn't want to do any of that, here's the undo. Back to the beginning. Okay, I'm going to leave it here. I'm going to hit next. This is the tougher part. This is the part where it matters, you know, the type of laser you have. So what I'm going to do here is, if you look at the little screen image, I'm going to do, this is called aromatic cedar, right? Lots of personality, engraves beautifully. Here's an engraving I did a little bit ago. The artist is DTSN Doodles, at DTSN Doodles on Instagram. I don't know if it's a he or she, but whoever it is makes amazing art. You should check it out. They sent me some of their files, and it's just beautiful. And it looks really nice on aromatic cedar. This one's oiled, right? So I'm going to take this sheet. I already did a little bit of a fire. You can see that in the lower right, but that's all right. Load this up in here. Okay. Now, aromatic cedar is kind of more red, so it absorbs the light really well. I'm going to put this up to 1200 millimeters a minute, right? Okay. Laser on. There's M3 or M4. I will explain that in a different video, but if you're engraving, use M4. If you're cutting, use M3. Okay. I'm going to make it 100 millimeters tall. Everything's in millimeters in this. That's about 4 inches tall here, okay? So what I did here is my engraving speed. So how fast the laser moves while it's on, right? M4, because I'm engraving, and the size, right? So if I were to go to the width, I need it 2 inches wide, which would be, what would that be? 50.8 millimeters. That'd be 92 tall, right? And if I wanted 120, I could change that and it would change the width automatically. But I'll go back to 100. Okay, now that I got that set up, I'm going to hit create. It's going to take a second. So that one was really fast. It does two things right there. I want you to understand. So when you load up big images and you don't see it, just be patient, okay? So what happens is it takes this image and turns it into G code, okay? Once it turns it into G code, all those windows go away. The next thing it does is tries to create a preview for you. So even if you hit OK and you're done and you don't see the preview image on the screen, just give it a while. Sometimes it takes a while to generate a preview image. So this one went pretty fast because it's a pretty small, pretty simple image, okay? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to move my head to where I want to start this engraving, okay? So I'm going to say here. I want to start it here, right? This is a 0 button right there. So this sets 0 for your X and Y. So if you look in this lower left corner, you'll see this little crosshair, right? I'm going to move that up. You'll see that crosshair just moved up here. Move it up again. Here's the crosshair. If I were to set 0, now it's back down here. Now it thinks that the point where the laser's at is a 0 point for this engraving. Once I get that set up correctly, I can hit play. I'll show you how to do a perimeter run and a center point in another video. But just to get it going here, I set my 0. I have a cut file. I'm all connected. My machine's on. Now I can hit play up here, okay? And I should probably close my lid. And as you can see, it's just going back and forth, making that image. Thank you.